Awesome. All right, today we've got another guest for Scaling Secrets. I have Margaret. She's an expert in continuous improvement, and she's going to talk about how we're using continuous improvement and AI to shape business models. So, without kind of going in too much farther, Margaret, will you give us a quick intro?
Hi there, Margaret Snape. I am one of the co-founders here at RGen Consulting, and we focus on the go-to-market side of business and building revenue with our clients. And that is everything from the strategy side of the business, go-to-market strategy, business model, content and messaging, all the way down to the operations and analytics within a sales and marketing organization.
Awesome. So, let's start off with continuous improvement. What does that even mean? What do you mean by continuous improvement, and how does that affect the business?
So I think it's super important. I was first introduced to continuous improvement in that concept, at least in my work at Boeing way back when, and I really latched on to the idea that you position your business and your organization in such a way where you are constantly finding ways to be more efficient and better and produce a better quality. I really, really love. So yeah, it's super important to me and very close to my heart.
When I think of continuous improvement, I think of manufacturing because that's kind of my background. Is that with Boeing, is that similar to what you were doing, is more operational, or is it really focused on purely the business side of it?
I worked on the business side, but Boeing
Okay.
fundamentally is a manufacturing company, so that influenced the way they think about things. So they often applied manufacturing concepts like continuous improvement to the business side. So that's kind of where I bumped into it.
What kind of focus have you done in the past? What part of the business are you trying to improve, and what are some results that you could expect?
So we typically work on the revenue side. That is an area where I think sometimes people aren't thinking about continuous improvement. You think about it in your operations and your product and stuff like that, but you may not think about it in your sales team. So, how fast are sales moving through your pipeline? And, is there something you can do to make them faster or scale them out? And so those are areas where continuous improvement can be really, really helpful and are sometimes not used or thought about as often.
As you're doing that, are you kind of looking at time to close for a client, or what part of the sales process have you worked on improving in the past?
So a couple pieces. One is deal velocity. So how fast is it moving through your pipe? Deal size. So what can you do while it's in your pipe to increase? It starts at $1. Maybe you want to figure out how to make it up to 10. And then let's see, was there another piece? I think those are the two biggest pieces where we focus. And then we have worked additionally on the marketing side where you're filling your funnel. So making sure that you're capturing all of your leads and stuff like that. And then improving the rate where your conversion rate from lead to opportunity. That's another place where you can drive some continuous improvement.
So, how do we identify areas that we want to improve before we even get into the project? What are you looking for when you're saying, "Hey, this is a process that I can improve"?
If you lean back and if you have the data and you can kind of look at the data, understanding, what does your sales cycle look like? How long does it take to get through there? What are your average deal sizes? What elements cause those deal sizes to increase at what points? Where is there expansion into other products? Those kinds of things. When you look across those for continuous improvement opportunities, I think you want to say, let's just pick on deal velocity. So how fast is it getting through the pipe? You can look and see, are you at what you would expect to be for industry standard, and where can you improve? And what has it done over time? So are you slowing down over time? Are you increasing over time? And some of it is a little bit contextual. I had a client where we worked in an organization where the sales cycle was actually pretty long, like 18 months, and that was because it was a very big piece of software. But their sales cycle for everything else was quite slow. And so what we found was that they were setting targets that were more closely aligned to the shorter sales cycle, and didn't account for the type of product that they were selling, this very large system that required a lot of work. So it's not that you couldn't shrink the system, but rather you had to think about it in that larger context. So targets that, pipe that I filled, that I put in there last year is actually going to affect this year's target. So often thinking from that kind of context can be pretty important.
Okay. Once you identify the issue or the area that you want to focus on, what kind of projects are you implementing? Do you have a cross-functional team that you're meeting with? What does that look like for the actual, improving what changes are going to be made? And then how do you actually implement them? How do you make that actual change?
Yeah, so I do something a little bit sneaky. I sit down with folks and I see if I can get them to complain to me. Because if I understand where the pain points are, those are places that I can fix. So I do think you need to understand you do have to work for your leadership. So you have to understand what they need. What kind of insights are they looking for in their business, or what are they looking to drive? And then you need to understand the pain points of the people who are actually executing it, because that's actually where you're going to find all of your improvements. So you can see that there will be process improvements. So instead of it being 4 steps, we can take it down to 3 or 2. But there will also be opportunities for tool improvements. A pretty good example of that was I implemented it was actually a monthly business review process and tool. So I built it from scratch. And what we discovered was that the leadership needed to be able to look across their business at a very high level, but then dive into specific parts where they wanted to have a more in-depth conversation. And the tool that they had just wasn't collecting the right data. They weren't able to have that conversation. And so I went in there and I talked to the folks who were collecting the data and reporting it, and it was super cumbersome. And that's why it wasn't getting, documented in the way it needed to. So I went in and helped them restructure the information and the tool and the process. And then to get it implemented, this sounds really silly, but it is as simple as I sat with people and made sure that they had the help that they needed. So yes, you have to communicate to them, and you need to train them, and they need to be aware of what's happening, but you need to leave them in such a way that they don't feel like they've just been left out in the open on their own. So you do need to stick around and support them. So that's where I actually found the success, was when I stuck around for several months and worked side by side with the team to make sure that all of their questions were answered. They didn't bump into any problems.
Yeah, that follow through is critical. I think you've given us a couple critical golden nuggets, if you'd say. The first one that I love is most people know what their problems are. They just don't know how to fix it. And as a consultant, when you come in and you're able to listen, and people will, like you say, complain to you, but then that's where you identify what those weaknesses are, and you can really listen. And of course, doing the same thing with clients as well, when it comes to sales cycle, will really help you identify those weaknesses. And then I've seen continuous improvement in more manufacturing facilities, but where that consultant will then leave after the improvement is made, and they'll use Six Sigma or other platforms to basically certify, hey, we made a statistical improvement in your process, congratulations. But as soon as they leave and no one's watching basically that video effect, no one's actually has their eyes on it, the process goes right back. And so that sustainability and making sure that the team's actually continuously trained and continuously watched until it becomes more core is awesome.
Yeah, I think you have to sit with them for 2 or 3 cycles, at least, maybe 4 if you have the opportunity, to get people really into the groove. So yeah. It can take a while, but I think it's actually worth it, because otherwise you've lost all of that, process definition, tool, implementation and stuff like that, if at the end of the day it's not adopted. So yeah, I think it's critical.
All right, so let's talk about AI and how that's affecting the business changes. How are you helping implement AI into businesses, and what are you seeing those effects?
Yeah, so we work on what we say is the business side of AI. The technology that's coming out is pretty strong. It's very usable. And there's a wide variety of things that are coming out. So, there's image generators and text generators. If you work in the legal field, there are tools that will help you redline a document. I recently came across a tool, and it was a chat bot that where you could ask questions, and then it would connect you to the right expert in your company. and the chatbot in the background was capturing the information. So in that case, that was actually that was utilizing AI to capture institutional knowledge, which I thought was so cool. And so there's some really great products that are out there. And what we do is we help people identify the right one. So there's so many out there that is pretty confusing. And we suspect that some of them may not make it, or they'll get combined into other products and stuff like that, because we're just here at the beginning stages. And so helping people understand which product they should select to address their leadership concerns and the pain points across the business. That's part of what we come in and help with. And then once a company has made that selection, we help them understand where in their business they should target to implement it. You shouldn't do everything all at once. That can be really disruptive, but rather you should select some low-hanging fruit, get it successfully stood up in a particular area or department or around a particular process, and then expand it from there. So that helps specifically with the change management piece, because if you can successfully roll it out in a small pilot, what you end up with is a bunch of change supporters who can help you get the word out as you're rolling it out and expanding across the business.
I like that. And we've learned a lot of those lessons here personally, just trying to implement things across the entire company at once. Even with a smaller company, people will freak out. You need those champions to help carry it through. We actually just implemented a chatbot on our website, which took a while to train, but it's pretty cool. The answers it gives are awesome. And the more you train it, the more intelligent it gets, and it'll start answering just as a human would. It's a little scary for the future. Is there a particular software that you've been kind of recommending to individuals or to businesses that you've really enjoyed working with?
Not specifically. We've worked with a couple of them, specifically around law firms. So Case Text is one that comes up. They were just purchased by a larger firm. So that one seems very promising. And there's one that's coming out of Europe called Robin AI that also seemed very promising. That one needs a little bit more, as I understand it, implementation and training. But if you spend the time to do that, it can be very powerful. So those are just a couple of examples of things that are, they're pretty strong and they're out there, but there are so many. So, I think it's less about choosing the product that everybody else is using and choosing the AI tool that is going to be best suited for your business.
I like that. I've been using ChatGPT a lot, and I'll use the native integrations, and because most of those are built on that model. Obviously, there's other ones out there that are coming out now. So other AI language models that are kind of running the background, but a lot of them are ChatGPT. So if you can figure out how to prompt that correctly, but a big piece of that, to your point, is the knowledge base that's there. So with the law, I'm sure they're training and educating the AI model on years of legal law and textbooks and kind of uploading their own private library. Same thing with those internal company tools. So we've experimented with that, but I use AI for almost every legal contract review now. As I'll upload as a PDF. I'll ask it, hey, what are the highlights? Please walk through every section for me. And I ask it very specific questions. And then if there's something I'm not sure about or uncomfortable with, at that point, I'll turn to my lawyer. So it's actually helped a lot with reducing legal fees and things like that. So I'm sure that we'll see a lot of that when it comes to not just for law firms, but also for more B2B consumers and even B2C consumers when it comes to, I'm going through buying a second office for our building, and we took the bank terms sheet, put it in there and said, hey, what is the total fee going to be? Because those are never straightforward. And what is my lifetime value, cost of the loan? All of these questions that I would have had to sit there with a calculator or gone to a CPA or done something I can do in seconds with ChatGPT. So it's pretty incredible what it's going to do across the board on both sides.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have to say on a personal level, I'm most excited for the Power BI Copilot integration that is going to come out. So if you haven't seen the little demo video, I don't work for Microsoft or anything like that, but the demo video was pretty compelling. So you basically connect your data sources, and then you can ask Copilot to build you a dashboard, and it can brand your dashboard based on other dashboards you've built in the past. And you can ask it questions against the data, and it can, offer insights and stuff like that you would have had to do yourself manually. So it's pretty cool what it looks like is coming down from that.
That's awesome. So what was the name of the tool again?
It's called Copilot. That's a Microsoft
Okay.
AI tool, but specifically with respect to Power BI, that one really blew me away.
Yeah, it's really cool and crazy how efficient it can make you. I know that the soon as ChatGPT came out, we started doing training with our team. We have a lot of our kind of processes writing related, and half our writing team was freaking out that they're getting fired, and we were like, no, we're not firing anyone. We're focused on efficiency, so please use this tool to come up with ideas, to do proofreading, to do all of these things. As you know, it can really take the output of one person, reduce the amount of time they have to spend, and double it or triple it, and so it's crazy. And then it can also improve, like we do crisis management. We'll have someone say, hey, like if this is my PR, my speech that I'm going to give, and for the incident, we can run that through ChatGPT and say, hey, what suggestions would you give? And obviously, we have several people looking at it, but it's just another eye who's been trained with more data points than any of us can imagine. And so, as you continue to use that and build it into your tool sets, that's going to be the power.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting. You're going to see far less paper pushing and far more human experts who are taking the information that's coming out of the AI machine and putting their human touch on it. So I think it has big implications for careers for people.
Oh yeah.
Because and it's natural to be scared. If I write all day and ChatGPT suddenly writes for me. But there's a lot of expertise baked into that person. And so if you shift their role just slightly, you get to tap into that expertise without wasting their time on, the initial draft or, the proofreading or whatever it is. But I think that there's going to be an increased need for those human experts. And that is actually pretty cool because there can be a lot more meaningful work out there.
Yeah, I think the space of AI is going to you're going to quote unquote lose jobs, but I think it's going to create a whole new space. And so even when I'm not the most talented writer, but I had to apply for something and I didn't want to waste my team's time, but I had to basically train the AI on how to write for an award the way I wanted to write. So I was able to take writing samples from different places, take company bio, take my personal bio, take other awards that we won in the past, take all this, educate the bot, basically educate ChatGPT, and then said, hey, based on this, create me a bio. And then it would start pumping stuff out. I'm like, okay, make sure to leave out this fact and change this fact. So it still took me 2 or 3 hours, but I was able to output something much better than I ever could and use historical data from everything we've ever done and basically put it into this and build a model specifically for that. So now we have an internal award model, and anytime there's a new award or a placement or someone needs a bio from the company, it'll pump it out, but it'll also match the style tone that's kind of across the board. So it's basically that copy guide for you built in, but you still need someone who's going to understand how to program. And I think that's where, especially in your space, where you really come in, is testing those tools, making sure they work, and then training everyone on how to use those tools, but also training the tools and how to work with those companies.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the concept of tapping into a business's own IP is super important. So it's not just something using the internet's worth of information out there. You're actually using your own previously created materials to create more IP. So I actually think that is a pretty interesting concept. And so a company like yours, a PR firm or a law firm or, a marketing company, they have a ton of content that you can pull from and then create more. And it just reduces the lift, or at least the initial lift. So I think it has a lot of potential, and the power of the business's own IP is going to really help take it to the next level.
So this might not be the correct question, but we talk about IP and we talk about data privacy, which is not really the conversation here. But when you talk about law firms and things like that, a lot of that is confidential. Are some of those softwares specifically with confidential? Are they redacting or removing confidential information? Do you have any kind of background on that?
So not a huge amount of background, but what I do know is that you can create instances where it only taps into your own IP or uses it first and then someone's language elsewhere without putting your IP out into the general space. So that's the direction things are heading, where I suspect that you will point it, to a file or a directory or something like that and say, use these materials. But already you're starting to see Azure has the ability to segment off your own content and tap into that without putting it out into the public space. So you'll start to see more and more of that.
Yeah, because I know I've uploaded confidential contracts with my social security number on there just because I didn't spend the time to take it off. And honestly, I know it's not completely private. So hopefully someone didn't just steal my data with it. I think that's going to be a whole space in its own.
Yeah, I actually think that even before you adopt AI, probably if you're a business leader, you should reach out to your team members and say, make sure you don't just put confidential information, proprietary information into general ChatGPT or Bing or something like that, Bard, because it could be used in the future for other things, and offer some coaching. It's good for X, Y, and Z, please don't use it for these other things. So that's something that people can do right away, even before they put AI into their business. And then you can select a tool that's going to work for you and actually connect your library of content to it. And then you can actually start producing like your own stuff, IP out of it.
Okay, awesome. Let's talk a little bit about your business. What does an ideal client look for you guys? Who should reach out to you?
Gosh, so anybody who's looking to take their business to the next level. So we do a lot of we help people understand their business model. So we do a lot of like partner program development, and that's actually interesting space now that all these AI tech companies are popping up. We're seeing that there's a lot of opportunity for partnerships out there. So people who need to get their business and sales model articulated and designed, that's a great client for us. People who need to position themselves in the marketplace, that's a great client for us. And then anybody who just in general has questions about how to start to harness AI as a tool and embed it into their business to make them more efficient and productive and basically improve their bottom line, that they should call us as well.
Okay, awesome. And then is there a specific revenue business size that you're looking for?
Typically above 25 million.
Okay. So medium sized businesses.
Yeah. So we work.
Depends on how you define medium, but
yeah. We work quite frequently with large, Fortune 500 type companies, but we work with smaller firms as well. But basically anybody who's at about 25 million is going to be in a position where they're starting to think about implementing this stuff and broadly. And so that's a good clip level.
Okay, awesome. And then if anyone wants to reach out to you, how would they do that?
They can reach out to me. My name's Margaret Snape. So it's margaret.snape@rgenconsulting.com. They can also visit our website, rgenconsulting.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And then before we jump off, any kind of last second nuggets to share with the audience?
I think the one thing that I hope people take away from this conversation is that AI is coming and it will have big impacts on your business. And so the further in advance that you can think about it, so starting to think about it now, today, the better position you and your company will be in. And so I really encourage people to get out there and explore.